And this will go over the areas of the comprehensive plan that were directly addressed by our planning commission members for updates. Please note that all of the tables, charts, and graphs all have updates to them as well, with the exception of a few that I'll point out a bit later in the presentation. When we started this process in September of last year, we covered Chapter 3 for quite a while. Chapters 1 and 2 of our comprehensive plan were lots of statistics and data regarding our citizens and median income and travel and things of that nature. And Chapter 3 really dealt with our community resources. So that's where we found lots of areas for updates. Our telecommunications update for one. This will now include the broadband initiative that's being offered through Central Virginia Electric Cooperative and Firefly. There were also other items under telecommunications as far as who our wireless providers are and our landline providers. I've worked closely with Jamie to help make sure that we address each of those and update accordingly. Under other resources, we of course have the wonderful addition of the Buckingham Library and Media and Conference Center, which is the renovation of Dillon Primary School. So we're going to write something specifically for that address that would match any type of news release that the county currently has in place to truly describe what that building offers the citizens of our county. Since our last comprehensive plan, we've also had the addition of Adams Museum, which is located here in the Village Center District at Buckingham Courthouse. We also have the addition of the barn, which is Buckingham Agricultural Resource Network, located near us here on Route 60, which is also a huge asset to our community. Something specific that we added to James River State Park. They won the designation of dark sky designation. There are very few places worldwide actually that have earned dark sky designation, so we have updated James River State Park to reflect that. During the last comprehensive plan, St. Thomas Aquinas Seminary had not actually been completed. It was set to complete in 2016. And so I removed the future home, and that updates to show, I believe November 2016 was when they held their open house for our county. We also will be removing and have removed Lionheart Resort from recreation sites. We also have two huge updates here in our county for infrastructure. Number one, the update to solid waste to include our automated gates, fencing, and other improvements. And of course, our utilities, water, sewer expansion and updates as well, bringing that to Sprouse's Corner, which offers many opportunities for economic development. Page 3 of your handout goes further into these revisions, and those would be updating law enforcement, public safety. Jamie Shoemaker, our IT director, undertook a huge endeavor to update their communication system. So that will be included under law enforcement. As of last Monday's meeting and the most recent events with the Buckingham Rescue Squad, which will be known as Emergency Management Services, and will be directed by our county before the end of this year. That section will be updated to reflect that change as well. We have another communication site which kind of works in tandem with telecommunications, and it talks about the endeavors of Buckingham along with the administration to make sure that we have the most advanced form of communications and the providers therein. We also had many updates to civic organizations, and unfortunately, most of the updates were actually deletions to our civic organizations. Lions Club being one, Friends of the Library, the Women's Club, the Gardens Club, just to name a few, but the majority of the updates, unfortunately, are deletions there. A very large change for us that the Planning Commission discussed in great detail was delineating certain tax map parcels from the Gold Hill Village Center. And this was due to a proposed conservation easement. So you will see that these tax maps have truly been delineated from that Gold Hill map in our comprehensive plan moving forward. Updating Chapter 5. It was decided by our Planning Commission to change the wording from land use to reflect truly what that section is about in the comprehensive plan, which is land management strategy. So throughout Chapter 5, you will see that change has been reflected. 2 areas where we are awaiting statistics from for updates are the Department of Forestry for their forest inventory analysis. The last printed plan that they have is from 2009. So I'm waiting for the director in Charlottesville to contact me, and he indicated it should be this week. And we also are awaiting some VDOT traffic statistics as well. Those 2 pages encompass all of the changes that were brought forward by our Planning Commission members. Before we move forward for any other matters of discussion, I'd like to open the floor to Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to address any and all other areas.
Nick, if I may, it might be simpler or expedite this matter if we just sort of go down the list you give.
Sure.
And just ask if any of the supervisors have any comments, questions, or whatever. We can start with the second page, which is the Planning Commission revision. And just start with the top one, telecommunications update to include broadband, CEC project. We'll just take them in order.
Okay.
See, try to maybe that'll keep us on course and get us going quicker. So we'll start with that. Any supervisors have any comments, additions, any questions?
Yeah, I do, Johnny. Is telecommunications update. What is that actually? I mean, what are you saying with that as far as the update?
Sure. So in Chapter 3, under the telecommunications section, it is talking directly about what our broadband initiatives were. Before it was Mid-Atlantic broadband. There were also cell service providers that no longer exist. There were landline providers that no longer exist as well. So this portion of telecommunications within the comprehensive plan truly represents the avenues by which our citizens have access to, whether it be landline, cell phone providers, or if and where. There are also maps that cover our county as far as that broadband coverage as well. So this truly represents all who have access to certain types of communication and those who do not. And prior to this, we did not have broadband offered through Central Virginia Co-op. So
did you provide a map of these areas?
yes, we do have a map of these areas.
Okay. And with that being said, with our negotiations and continued talks with Central Virginia about Firefly, District 3 is the test market for that moving forward. And Mr. Wood has been very easy to work with. And, from my take is that they're looking, if this thing is successful in District 3, that at some point in time in the next couple of years we're going to be moving forward in the other districts of the county. So I just wanted, is that included in the update, or is that not?
I would assume that we could make that an addition to it.
Okay.
Make a statement having that in there that future plans are county-wide. Get started with that if you prefer.
They've also been in negotiations with Dominion Power at Southside because in the edge of the district over there where I'm at, those 2 providers come into that area, but there's been a lot of discussion with Central Virginia and these other providers, and I actually think there's been some legislation passed that they can actually go into those other companies' I guess area, regional stuff to be able to get people that are close to that, to Central Virginia's territory, to be able to get them, provide them internet service too. It's been a lot of discussion, and I don't know how far it's gone. I haven't talked to Mr. Wood
Right.
lately, but that was part of the discussion when we first started this situation. So I just want to make that clear too.
Right.
And that-
Understandable. We can, one thing about this, plan, it can be modified at any time.
Okay.
And we could hold off and see how things progress, and then, 4, 5, whatever, 6 months from now, if it needs to be redone, we can certainly do it. That's no problem at all. So it's really however you want to structure it. You can list it now, make mention of it now, or just wait and see how it progresses, and then, put it in plan at that point.
I mean, my opinion on that would be, just from a business standpoint, for future businesses coming to Buckingham County, to let them know that, if they're looking at our comprehensive plan, and I want them to know that there is availability, there's going to be availability, internet service in the future. This thing, and I think it's going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have any reason. I think this thing is as big as electrifying the state of Virginia when it happened back in the 1920s and 30s. This is going to get rural counties like Buckingham on the map. I mean, for businesses to look at us seriously about coming to Buckingham.
If I
We
could
can-
add,
we can make a
yeah, if I
statement.
could add something, I think what we're looking at here, I guess, Don, what you say is a goal.
Yes, ma'am.
And I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, Nikki, but I'm on the Go Virginia Executive Board, and last Friday, we approved an allotment of Go Virginia money for Mid-Atlantic broadband. Now, where this plays in for us would be a line, and you might call it like your pipeline transmission line from Lynchburg to Charlottesville. But this is what would branch off, and it actually mentioned Dominion and other providers. So Don, that's a lot along what you've been asking for a long time, is for them to, there is a plan, hopefully, that they will pull. It's called the middle mile. We've all heard about the last mile, and we've always said we got to get to the middle mile before we get to the last one. So this is called the middle mile. So I think we should put in there as a goal to get to provide this service to everyone.
And to add to that, Ms. Carter, what the money was for is to really run it up Route 20 between here and Charlottesville to connect healthcare facilities too. But at the same time, yeah, it's to really connect us UVA, Martha Jefferson, and those healthcare facilities up there.
And that indicates a growth corridor for us. So
That's right.
if we utilize the press releases from Mid-Atlantic and Go Virginia and Central Virginia Electric Co-op, I think they will all reflect that they are working towards future expansion, so that would leave it open for the necessary growth and things that we can, since this is a living, flowing document, that we can update as new advancements are made on both of those initiatives.
Because what Mid-Atlantic said in the meeting the other day is this is like the branch. If we don't have that, for the others to feed, the other companies to feed off it, so it won't happen. So that's a plus.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, we'll move to, which is pretty straightforward, addition of the Buckingham Library, Media and Conference Center. Any comments?
I've got a couple, John. I happen to be on this committee also,
Uh-huh.
and with Mr. Chambers and Carl and Ms. Carter. We're actually a little bit ahead of schedule as far as the renovation projects on that site. And not only and this kind of plays back into the broadband stuff too, that's going to really be an internet area right there that's the public and citizens of Buckingham are going to be able to use. And the library is providing a lot of that technology on them, not necessarily on the county. So, I mean, I've just gotten so much positive feedback from the citizens in my district, and I'm sure there are other guys here too that have had the same scenario. They just couldn't believe how that building has transformed into something that is just, I just think it's one of the best. It's number one, it's the best location in the county, bar none. I mean, it's got that in business. It's considered location, and it has it. And not only that, it has the youth recreation fields there that we're gonna be able to, use and create traffic for the library. So, and the community center is something that's just, it's just amazing. I think it's really gonna add an extra feature for the citizens and the community as a community center. But, you know, we're wide open and just looking at so many different things. I can't wait to have the kickoff of that facility once it gets finished. I mean, I'm just so proud of it. And I know the rest of the board members are too. So it's been a lot of work doing that. So.
We can actually, if I'm understanding correctly, you might want to put that in with the telecommunications, make a reference to the library and the potential that that has.
Oh, yeah, I think that's so important to businesses, knowing that you have a facility like that in the county.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
At least make reference, and then when it's actually fully executed, you always have the ability to go in and upgrade it again.
Well, that's right, and I think that just moving forward with that being said, it's been a long time coming, but you know, I think looking back and 4 years ago when we first started this project and got it off the ground, we utilized the building that was in our inventory that, you know, it's just, by now we would have probably torn it down if we had it done what we've done. And I think that's just another feather in the cap of the county by doing it and, you know, treating the taxpayers the way we did. I mean, it was something that needed to be done, and the citizens, and it's just something I think is just so important. So.
I will make sure that we include a detailed description for the library. I will add, just to kind of piggyback on what Vice Chair Bigford and Board Supervisor Don Matthews had to say, and that is when discussing economic development with prospects, it is very nice to state that the Buckingham Library will have a conference center as well. I know that lots of existing businesses and businesses to come to the area are always looking for places to train their employees or just hold a meeting kind of separate from their workplace. And also to know that that asset is there so that you know, they could go to the library, use the technology that's available, and create more business movement as well. So definitely an asset, and we will make sure that there's a detailed description to match all the services provided by the library.
There's one other thing I'd like to say too. I'd like to brag on Mr. Shoemaker too and Carl Carter. They've been very instrumental in getting this thing, taking care of the project and looking after it, and along with E.M. Wright too and Ms. Carter. But those guys have kind of been the nuts and the bolts that kept this thing going and kept them on schedule. You know, so I just want to give them a shout out too. They've been very instrumental in this.
Very good. Okay. Any other comments in regards to the library conference center? All right, addition of the Adams Museum. Anyone have any comment? Okay, how about the addition of the barn, Buckingham Agricultural Resource Network?
How do we address, I have a question, Ms. Evanson, how do we address the growth or maybe the lack thereof of agriculture and that sort of thing in the comp plan?
In regard to, well, how do you want to address? What is it that you see as an issue or an opportunity?
So what I'm asking is, what does the planning commission see in terms of continued growth, sustainability of just farming and ag in the community? I just make note of it since I saw agriculture in the BARN.
Sure. So, and the planning commission, feel free to chime in. I know that continuing to have land available to farm and supporting agricultural initiatives is something that I know very well that the planning commission will always support. I've not ever heard that they wanted to remove land that's currently in use for agricultural matters to do anything with. So they do are very cautious when certain uses arise. So please feel free to address that. Any of the members available tonight?
Thank you.
Commissioner Warner, have any comment on I mean, it's something we thoroughly discussed and planned actually in the narrative. And that also goes in the section of the call, correct, where we change from land use to land maintenance, correct? So it's addressed in there, Gordon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Once you get there, I mean, all this is draft material, so once you get it and see it, if there's something you feel like needs to be corrected and, adjusted, just let us know. It's a work in progress.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
But it's
As far as,
also a guide. I mean, this is a guide.
yeah.
Sure.
It's not set in stone.
Jordan,
I think we ought to brag on all these things.
yeah, as far as the barn,
So that facility.
I mean, that's how you go get people in.
as far as the barn building and agricultural resource, they have all those online cattle sales there now,
Yeah.
so that brings in a lot of dollars.
Well, I got something I want to say about this barn. We had the kickoff of the Central Virginia Electric Firefly project there, and that place was packed. I've never seen so many people in that place at one time. And I'm a member of the Buckingham Cattlemen's Association. I've been over there to several meetings, but the atmosphere that day was just electric. I mean, it was people there, from the governor's office right on down to some little peon like me. So it was just, the talk, the buzz and everything, all the people, there was a lot of farmers there. Central Virginia was there, Mr. Wood spoke, and all these dignitaries and high-powered people. Mr. Chambers was there, Jordan was there, a lot of board supervisors, but you could just tell that the community was just so excited about that situation and the facility. Some of these people had never been to the barn, and they were just amazed at that facility here in Buckingham County. So hats off to Buckingham Cattlemen's Association and the barn. Whoever thought that process up did correct.
And it didn't cost anything to the kids.
That's right. That's another plus.
Also, if I may, Jordan, your comment is addressed under chapter 1 in the introduction, where it talks about keeping Buckingham a rural county,
Yes, ma'am.
and I think that pretty much covers that.
Thank you.
Just to tag on to what Alice said, every time that something is presented to the planning commission, our planning commission does always view sensible and sustained growth in economic development, and always with the attempt to maintain our rural character and the beautiful landscapes that we have in this county itself. So always protecting the integrity of agriculture while looking for opportunities for growth as well.
Okay. Any other comments before we move to the next item? Next is the seminary. Anyone have any? Yeah.
State park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did, I skipped the state park. Sorry about that. Any comments on the designation there?
I got a question. Ms. Carter probably knows more about this than I do, but did we give those people a grant last year or some type of funding for that dark sky thing?
We wrote a letter of endorsement
Yes.
to ask it to be designated. We didn't
Okay.
put any money in there.
Okay, well, that was, I remember the letter, but that's still a pretty big distinction right there to be able to be recognized as something like that only a few places in the United States are, so,
Right.
that's awesome.
I think along with this particular section, not only James River State Park, but Holiday Lake and Bear Creek Lake and the Featherfin Management Center, we are very fortunate to have these resources available to us as a county, because they themselves bring economic development. If any of you have the opportunity to visit these state parks, you pay a $5 fee to park, and that's it, to be able to take your family and enjoy the beautiful scenery and the outdoors. But these areas bring lots of revenue and tourism into our county as well. So I think it is important that we truly showcase the assets that we have in those state parks and the fact that they are located in and around our county.
Thank you, Nick. Any other comments?
Yeah, and just to tag off that, it's an international dark sky.
Yes.
It's not just,
Yeah.
And it does say international dark sky designation in the comprehensive plan draft.
that.
Great. All right, if there's nothing else on that, we'll now move to the seminar. Anyone have a comment?
A lot more traffic up my road. Joe and I need a new road.
I guess above my pay grade.
His name is Scott Frederick, that's what his name is. You can contact him at VDOT.
They've been a
Do y'all
big plus
actually-
for driving the need for the hotel.
6-year plan or something like that.
Do y'all actually sit as a commission, do you actually decide what roads and stuff getting worked on?
We just put them on a list and, prioritize them that way.
Yeah.
As the money comes available, it's,
I understand.
that's the way it's worked out, so,
There's a lot of traffic on that road, isn't it, Joe?
yeah.
Yes, it is.
I wanted to add, our county administrator had a comment in regard to St. Thomas Aquinas Seminary, just to indicate that they are a driving force, one of the driving forces behind the need for the hotel because of the number of individuals that come to stay. They've been staying in outlying counties, and now with the addition of the hotel on Wingo Road, these individuals will be able to keep that revenue very, very local and also be able to serve the seminary with those particular guests at a close proximity.
And we'll have to add that when that gets going.
Yes, we will. Hopefully that'll be one of those fluid updates that will happen very soon.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have any other comments before we move along? The next item is self-explanatory, the removal of the Line Harbor Resort and recreational sites because they, of course, are closed. We'll go on to the update of the solid waste to include the automatic gates and improvements. I would like to comment that every time that I've been there, they work correctly, and it's obvious, because I come by 15 all the time at the tower there, and there is a big difference in the amount of trash that's there, because it was open before. I don't know how much difference it's made in the county as far as the cost, but it certainly had to help a little bit, and with at least with that site. And I
We'll
suspect
start
talking to other people,
We'll start
the
seeing that
one
more.
that was also over towards our Don's at
Shepherd's,
Shepherd's,
Mass
yeah.
Market,
yeah, but that was getting some additional trash that wasn't originating or coming from the county.
that's right.
So anyhow, that's my little spiel. Congratulations. That is basically what I'm trying to say. I think
I think we'll start
worked out very
seeing
good.
the cost reduction since the Gold Gill site has been done, because that was kind of taken up for where we were saving at the other sites, but now I think we'll see that.
Ms. Carter knows a lot more than I do about the financial side of it, but, I mean, it's not an eyesore to the county any longer either, those
Absolutely
places.
not.
I mean, that's a big plus. Plus, that was one-time money, that was not reoccurring money that it was spent on those sites, and it needed to be done. It's not a situation that, I mean, every one of them needed to be done, so. I think Lynn made a little presentation to us here not long ago, and there has been a savings, and I don't know if you got the final numbers on that for last year, but I think here sometime in the near future, we'll know there was a savings, I can tell you that.
Yeah. And I will agree with you that I've had numerous people tell me how pleased they are with all the sites and how, they're clean. The fence makes such a nice difference, and it's just aesthetically pleasing, especially when you have them sitting on the main court.
That's right.
And I think it's worked really well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, it's a good job. I mean, the sites that wasn't maintained, you might say, were.
I think it's been a real asset to Buckingham County. We got one more site to do in the county and they'll be completed. So we get that done, and I think it's really been a real asset to the county. We've had a lot of other counties looking at our system and very interested in doing the same thing.
Very good.
I will make one other statement on this too. We have a recycling committee now that we're we're moving slow, but there are things that we are gonna be looking forward to in the future as far as recycling. And of course, I don't need to tell every one of you, that's the way things are going this day and time. And that's another way that we're gonna be able to save some money with these solid waste sites if we institute this correctly. And you have to kind of take baby steps when you're doing stuff like this. You just can't go out there hog wild and spend a whole lot of money that we don't have. But anyway, we are looking towards the future, and we've had a lot of citizen input about that too, wanting to have recyclable stuff in areas that we can put it. So, you know, we're really looking at that very
And
strongly.
maybe it should be in a comprehensive plan.
I think it should be.
Right.
I think it should be some statement in there about that. So.
Yeah.
I think it's wise. I've been approached quite a few times, or if you're gonna try to do recycling.
Yeah,
I said, you know, I know it's in the mix, but that's all I know at this time.
it is, and we're moving on it too. I mean, it's, like I said, this year has been a tough year, but you know, you have to make plans for stuff like that. You can't wait and say, we're gonna do it, or we're trying to do it. You know, you gotta start making a movement on something like that.
Okay.
And once
Very good.
we finish the Dillon site and then meet our recycling goals, we'll have met our complete solid waste, that report that we submit to the state. So we'll have achieved our whole goal. And it's kind of like a guide of what our comp plan is to the rest of the county. We have a solid waste management plan, and the state had to approve that. So we'll have reached we'll have reached in a few years what we had 7 years to do.
Very good.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, good.
The new sites that we redid, I know at the Dillon site, they had the recycle the cardboard and the clothes and the shoes, and I've been asked if the other sites are gonna get those containers added.
56 has those containers now.
Okay.
Might need a little help with the others. I know 56 has them. I don't think they're at the new bait site.
There's 55 over there.
655.
They're over there.
Yeah, and I think Arbonia does. Yeah. So we're working on that. That catches a lot of the cardboard and a lot of clothes on 56, I've noticed.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? That brings us to our utilities, water, sewer expansion and updates. Anybody have anything they want to express?
Well, with that, we have, I think within this time frame, built a new state-of-the-art water treatment plant. We have upgraded the sewer plant. We have the new water treatment plant that is exceptional. And we also have updated and upgraded the sewer plant to double our capacity. That project's done. And what you see going on at Sprouse's Corner right now is the sewer expansion to all 4 corners. And we're hoping there with build it and they'll come. We already have a good many users with the hotel or motel and all on that corner that will be going on. But that is scheduled to be finished probably within the next month, I believe. So with that, we've accomplished a lot with those 2 things.
Especially with the availability of real estate right there,
Yeah.
right, Ms. Carter? In terms of kind of zoned as well, I would add.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything, any comments? All right.
What are you asking for, Johnny?
That was, Pat, that was in regards to the utilities, water and sewer expansion and updates.
Right, but what was your last question? Does anybody else have what?
Oh, did you have any comments that you wanted, Pat? I was putting to the.
I have a topic I want to talk about a little bit, maybe.
All right, floor is yours.
Pardon me?
Go ahead, Pat, you're free.
Okay. I think we need to take a closer look at the history of what's happening in the business area of the growth area. I mean, in the last 5 years, I can't remember a single case that took place within the growth area. Everything is outside of it. And I think it's to the point we really need to make some decisions about whether we're gonna just stop zoning from one end of the county to the other, or we're gonna do something about it. I mean, when we look at the economy and the tax revenue and all that going right now, I don't think there's any doubt that we need new tax revenue from business. And, you know, it's sort of something else to call it. Maybe we need to look at some type of new zoning, a new type of zoning district, which encompasses residential, agricultural, business, commercial, the whole bit of it. Very similar to a PUD, where, you know, maybe anything's allowed.
If I could comment, we are running, as you all have seen, into a lot of what we call spot zoning. And if you have someone come in that wants to do a beauty salon, a antique shop, if it's not within the town of Dillon business area or in a village center district, they have to go through a 4-month process for either a SUP or a zoning tax amendment, and it's just not business friendly. Most of our folks around here, they don't like it, but they understand. But if you have a new business, small business, that wants to come in, 4 months could be a killer for that. And we are finding a lot of spot zoning. So with talking with Pat, they talked about a PUD, but that running, and this would be in zoning, but we would want a guide or a goal through the comp plan to look at something that'd be more business friendly for the small businesses. But we looked at PUD, but that's with a small business, say a retail would come in, that's to serve your PUD. And it's 1 acre limits in the PUD, so we didn't think that was right. We looked at business, and I personally wouldn't think it would be fair to say up 15 or out 20 to zone people's agricultural property and farms and homes B1, because a lot of times you can't get a mortgage loan to sell a home that's in B1 because it's not considered residence. So we don't think that, in my opinion, it's not fair to folks that already have bought property where they think they're zoned one way. So we talked about maybe looking at a mixed new zone, but we would, to be more business friendly. But we would like something in the comp plan to give us the goals and the means for the planning commission and board to get there through zoning. But we'd like to have that guide in the comp plan. We're just seeing a lot of you know, people come in and they will want to do a beauty salon in an A1, and they can't do it right away. And we never turn them down, so, you know, it'd be much easier to have them be permitted to do it.
To your point, Becky, too, if you were to create a new zone, you could direct that a little bit where you want to also.
Yes, yes.
And that would be an incentive to go into those areas
In
to
your
start
growth-
off with a
in
small
your
business.
growth
So
area.
it would sort of be a dual service. It would be
Yeah, and-
ability to hopefully draw more business, but also
Yeah.
be, you know, the incentive to locate where maybe not exactly where we want, but in these areas that were sort of designated. So it'd be sort of an incentive in 2 directions there.
Because
I think-
unfortunately, where our growth areas are, there's a lot of residents also.
Yes.
And you don't want to zone them business when they don't want to be and didn't buy into it that way.
Right.
So we have to have respect for that. So
Well, I think it's-
another zone might be a mixed zone that would include all those things.
Right. I think to accommodate the residents already there, you just have to be very specific on what you allow to come into that zone if that's what you create. Just limit the usage or the businesses, I should say, not the use. But basically, you're looking at, a lot of times in the residence, it's just home businesses, working out of the home. They might have 2 or 3 employees. A lot of it's done by internet services, things of that sort, where they're just working out of homes. But I think it's something certainly needs to be explored.
So, and I mean, I know Pat's been doing a lot of grass mowing and thinking, because he calls me when he comes in off the mower and got the ideas of these things. So if the commission and board, it would be your pleasure, we would try to come in with some wording and for it to bring back to you on the comp plan to lead us in that direction.
Are you looking at the growth areas? Is that what you're trying to get to? Or what are your thoughts? You're talking about
Well,
creating a new zone?
Let's look at it in a big spectrum. Say you started at Sprouse's Corner and ran all the way to the Prince Edward line. And then you started at the food line on 20 and ran all the way down to Albemarle County. I mean, you've got 2 adversarial counties there that the zoning is not real easy to obtain. If you look at Prince Edward, they just turned down La Croix expansion. I mean, I'd love to have La Croix, but they're not going to come put an asphalt plant in Buckingham when their quarries in Prince Edward.
But Johnny, to go back to your point, you're saying, let's go ahead and label the businesses.
well, it's not so much labor.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah, it's
decide
just-
what kind of business can go in that area.
Right. You know,
That zone from
Be
Sprouse's to.
permitted uses or SUP uses.
Right.
Right.
Since we've been discussing this, I've actually looked into the zoning ordinance and districts of neighboring counties and what they allow. Some are agricultural residential, some are neighborhood residential, and it gives a specific list. Some of what we've had to spot zone to allow for home-based businesses and different zoning text amendments, those type of things are already permitted in those districts. So, of course, we want our district, our new district, if that's what we chose to do, to be consistent with what our citizens are actually doing in that particular area, and it does help to guide that economic development. So, I mean, it would, we wouldn't do anything that didn't match how our citizens are living and working currently, but it would be an improvement so that when we have the calls coming in to, can I operate this type business? Can I do this type business? And the answer is generally no.
They would have to wait for 4 months.
Exactly.
Minimum.
Yeah. And they follow the business request that in the last 20 years have been types of things that have been brought to on a case-by-case basis. So it really would open the door for sensible business growth.
If Ms. Evanston, if I can comment, Mr. Chairman, in your sort of research, have you seen that we have an appropriate amount of zoning districts when it comes to comparison to, in contrast to other counties our size and with our demographic and tax base and things of that nature? I mean, do we need to consolidate? Do we need to?
I think we have a very sensible amount of zoning districts. I mean, with the addition of 1 to 2, I mean, there are some counties near us that join us that have entirely too many districts based upon, and these comments come from zoning administrators in those particular areas. So I think that, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make sure that this wheel runs more smoothly and efficiently for our citizens and makes sense. I think that's the biggest thing that our planning commission and that the board does, and that is, take these situations case by case, and we make sure through a written narrative that what we've done always makes sense for the business and the spot zoning that's happening. But, this would be the addition of possibly 1 more district to our zoning ordinance, which I think would make sense in specific areas. Pat just mentioned 15 to Prince Edward and 20 to Albemarle. Those are both growth corridors.
But we don't have that list yet.
I did not pull it for this meeting
No, I
tonight,
mean,
sir.
that's what we need to come up with.
Yes, that's what we would.
We had-
This is something we need to decide tonight.
The planning
No.
and, the planning.
We're just trying to get agreement to go all ahead with it, aren't we?
Just to to possibly add this in the,
Added us a guide and a goal.
in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, you add us a guide and a goal,
The
and
specific,
then,
the specific districts will come back to the planning commission first, if you so choose, and y'all will really undertake what that new zoning district will look like as well before it's presented. Tonight is just pulling this together to see if the comprehensive plan has room for the addition of more guided growth and development. By way of the-
Well, we mainly want to
If I
see,
may.
the
Yes,
board
ma'am.
wants, is that the direction you want to
I,
head?
I do, I can only speak for myself, but I mean, I'm very interested in that because we want the public to perceive that we are a business-friendly community and county. In my opinion, I mean, that's just a win-win situation for us, moving forward in the future. So, yes, I am for something like that.
So what you want is another zone that you can just set up and say, once that person gets in that zone, they're able to do a business without coming back to it.
That's right.
But they still gotta come to us to change from A1 to whatever this zone is gonna be, right?
Well, I think that's what the board is gonna determine, you know, the planning commission, not.
Right.
So how would it benefit and help them to get there quicker, is what I'm saying?
If-
You know, still gotta come in.
I think we're doing away with that.
what it would
No
do,
matter what.
I think we're doing away with the part where they come to us. We're listing a certain
Business.
type
It
of
would be a
business.
by right.
Right, certain uses.
And Nikki
by
and
right.
Ms. Carter are making the decision.
You can be in the zone, you know?
Yes, it,
They
right.
would have to be in the zone, that's right.
yeah, see, that, they would,
It would be, certain items are by right within that zone. There's no need to come to the planning commission.
Exactly.
and those things would be decided later by the planning commission and ultimately the board of supervisors.
Well, I thought there was something we talked about before, that we couldn't just change the people's zoning, even though you say this area is a growth area,
Well,
or
what we-
whatever you want to say, but.
Yeah, and that's what we said, but so what you would look at carefully in those areas is not to infringe upon the rights of those that are already there. You're
Right.
talking about small businesses, a convenience store or antique shop or a hair salon.
Home-based
That's gonna
businesses.
change the character,
Right.
but make it easier for the small businesses. And you all, I mean, this is just a guide. You've got to go through about a 30-day wait period for the public to be able to review this plan, that the planning commission has a hearing, and then the board has a hearing. So we've got plenty of time to go through the process, and then it would be up to the board and planning commission how they want, the planning commission board, how they want to proceed with that.
But at the bottom line, are you looking for the businesses to be more localized or more in one spot than you are being?
No, we're actually looking for bigger areas where small businesses can operate.
We're just asking the board, you,
Right. But we have,
if that's the direction you want us to look at.
we have that option of setting up
We had
a
to set it
zone,
up.
you know, to stir
Right.
if we choose to. It depends on how strict, you know, how far you want to take it, how strict you want to get it. That would just have to be a discussion we'll have to have. Come up with a plan and then talk it out and see if it makes sense.
Yeah, because the last couple of ones that we've had to add a zoning amendment, and
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to get away from. I understand that, but, because we don't want to keep adding zoning amendments, but. I don't
Well, you've
know.
got to, you got to look at, well, you all have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And you may, while you're doing it, in like in A1, you might want to add that a hair salon can be there, or a antique shop would be a permitted use in A1. It's just, you have a lot of vast areas where people can't do these things without the 4-month process.
And that's a possibility that might, at least initially, what might work better, is to just make changes in each district to allow small businesses and specify what small businesses can do. Now, right. Now, the only
Just
problem
looking at
then is
ways-
you're not
Ways for y'all to consider.
staring it to where you might want it to be, but you're only talking really realistically home businesses, you know, small. So it's a lot of discussion. I mean, it's two ways to go at it. You can zone it, which is going to probably be a little bit more difficult, or you can make the changes in each district and to allow that as a by right. to avoid that situation.
Before we had this comprehensive plan, we had one that had many by rights listed.
We took some.
And we took those out
Consolidate them.
and consolidated, so we might need to be privy to the old list before we start updating the new list.
I
You
actually,
understand?
I actually got those two prior zoning ordinances, which were given to me by Mr. Allen.
Yeah, yeah, I have a copy of that too.
I have both of those, so, yes, it's, you know, it will take some work, and we truly will have to decide, y'all will have to decide what do you see fit, even if we kept the district the way it is. Do we introduce, you know, one of our most recent SUPs was for a non-retail office space, so now instead of having any non-retail office space listed separately, now they all will come in as non-retail, instead of trying to, pull every single non-retail usage out. We have one that's, you're gonna have introduced next week, and this is gonna be for a professional service office. You know, Mr. Miles mentioned, things that are home-based service business, but that's not exactly what's allowed, when you think of a home-based service business. If we go back to someone who's utilizing or cutting hair in their home, that's not a home-based service business. That's a retail business that, will have traffic in and out of that particular space. So even though in our thinking, we, you know, may initially process it as a home-based service business, but that is not what is a retail place of business.
And I would add, Ms. Emerson, those are the specifics that we as one team here need to boil down on, I think.
Well, I'd like to say something. I don't think we're in a position to really turn a business away. I mean, whether it's a home-based business or, I mean, you have to look at the total landscape of something like this. If you look at retail sales this day and time, and a lot of it has to do with COVID, there's so many people doing online purchasing now that it's really surpassed the brick and mortar stores. You follow what I'm saying? I mean, so there are businesses out there that do different things online, computerized, where, I mean, my generation, I never thought about that. I mean, my wife does a lot of that stuff on Amazon and different things, but you know, I'm a brick and mortar type of guy. I want to go in the store, I want to see and touch what I'm feeling, and, you know, touch what I'm buying. But there's a lot of people out there that they don't care about that. I mean, and that the younger generation, that's where we're going to be reaching people and businesses coming in to Buckingham in the future. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. I mean, you can write that down in your book, so that's going to happen.
Well, just to go back to your comments on the broadband.
Yeah.
As that expands in Buckingham, it opens up the opportunity for more home businesses, and that's going to be the future. And then,
yeah,
not knowing what the coronavirus is going to do, it's going to expedite that situation.
That's
So
right.
it's probably good that we are going to try to address it in some
Yeah.
form or fashion.
I don't like to limit things to a home base. I mean, how many employees? I mean, I'm not saying I'd like to see a business come in with 1,000 employees. I mean, I probably would like to see it, but what are the chances of that happening? It's not very good. But you know, when you're talking about 15 or 20 employees, that's a big number to me for Buckingham. Okay, so I don't want to say let's limit it to 4 or 5 employees or so. Or, you know, I just don't like to do things like that. I think it should be open, and you know, sometimes the bigger the better. But that's something I guess you'd have to look at case by case, okay, and we make that determination at that time.
It would probably be a need at some point to have some kind of cutoffs, you know, that it would have to come for the planning commission and the board.
There'll be certain things you do want.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, businesses or the number of people or the traffic it creates or generates,
There'll be
whatever.
things.
There's going to be some specifics we have to put in there to address that, to keep it from something developing larger than we anticipated in the location it was at. Yeah, I guess it's the best way to put it.
And I mean, it's gonna take a lot of work and thinking and consideration, and if we could do it to somehow have the wording to be enhance small businesses and economic development, because I'll say again, although the pipeline is on hold or not gonna happen, we still have the authority to market 200 acres, and we have it on the Department of Economic Development website, but it's Zone A1. So, you know, that doesn't get it might get a first look, but it might not get the second look because it's not zoned for industry. So I think we have a lot of work to do to enhance our county for business growth. But yet, we still want to reserve the way of life for those that are in these districts too.
It's a fine balance.
That's a good name for the district, a fine balance.
So if I'm reading the crowd right, the consensus is to try to come up with something. So we'll, good suggestion, Pat. You hear that? Pat, did you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, we're gonna put that
What's
on.
the question?
No question, just said, good suggestion, and we're gonna, you gave us more work. How about that? We're gonna address that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, let's move to, next is the update of the law enforcement, public safety.
And if I may, if we could combine the update of law enforcement, public safety, and communications, they actually do go hand in hand with their new 911 radio system. I can't explain it as well as our IT director.
Does that also encompass the update for the rescue squad?
No, the rescue squad will be different.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. We'll move to the update of the rescue squad.
Sorry, I thought they were good.
You can use that one,
I'm sorry. Oh, Jerry, you gonna speak?
You're on the hook.
Okay, what we got? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Vice Chair Bickford just moved through the updates to law enforcement, public safety, and communications, specifically to their, and I call it a new radio system, but it encompasses so much more than that. It's, and you worked on that 911 update. And
Sure. So if we're referring to the 911 upgrade that we're almost finished with now, within dispatch, we are now text to 911 ready, which means you can text 911 from any cell phone. We're also working, currently the system that is in use uses plain old telephone lines. So just like what you and I have in our house, that plain old telephone system goes down. You know, we lose our 911 trunks. So we're going to an IP-based system. It'll allow us seamless transfer to other organizations, allows us to have redundant paths, diversity studies have been made. We're currently putting in that fiber now, and that project is wrapping up. We're scheduled for November 10th, and that is the cutoff for that right now, November the 10th. Everything goes well, we won't have a problem here meeting it. AT&T, of course, is having a couple issues due to COVID, just being able to get into the buildings and getting contractors lined up and things were a little delayed. So that's where we're at on the new 911 system coming into dispatch.
thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, we'll now move to the update on the rescue squad.
Well, the update to Rescue Squad will be emergency management services, and it will be operated by our county. Due to, well, we've had a wonderful source of volunteers in this county for 5 decades. And then now we've reached the point where people such as myself, and I have not chosen to go the volunteer route, unfortunately. So that has left just a few members of that organization, and I know that the president, Carrie Flippin, is going to retire from that organization. And Becky stated at the meeting last week that prior to the end of December 31, 2020, the Board of Supervisors is coming in to operate the rescue squad services, and from approximately 2 years we'll staff that through DRT, and then the plan would be to operate, to hire our own staff for this. So this particular section of the comprehensive plan, I think, is huge. When individuals are reading our comprehensive plan to know who we are and what basic infrastructure is offered here in the county. This is a huge asset to know that when you pick up the phone to call 911 through this new system that Mr. Shoemaker just described, that we will have state-of-the-art response to those calls. And Becky, please add any and everything to that as well.
We're operating a whole new thing.
Any other comments?
Look at,
Yes, sir.
do UVA still our funding county money, give the county money for the rest of the squad?
Does UVA still?
Give the county funds for the rest of the squad.
That's a good question for Carl and Becky.
What's that?
Does UVA still give funds to the rescue squad here?
I don't know that they, no, I don't think so. I don't know that they did. I think they used to contract with UVA.
I thought I saw in the plan when one time they was contributing money funds to it. Let me quite look at.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Let me look at something.
I think it's important that you bring that up, Ms. Edmiston, and of course, planning commissioners and the board members as well, because I think that we, too often we overlook EMS as not being a piece of the infrastructure in the county. And it certainly is a huge piece of infrastructure in the county, business or residential and everything in between and on the fringes. It's a huge service that we're currently undertaking, and it's a good foresight on y'all's part to mention that, I think.
He'll cut it back on.
And we've already added, some of you know, the Glenmore crew, 24/7 crew, that fortunately the county's able to pay for with the CARES money. But I know of the last 2 weeks, 2 serious accidents that Glenmore has been on the spot, and we've been thankful to have had them, or we would have had a big problem. So in our area, if the squads are out to UVA on a call and you don't have anything here, that's could be life-threatening. So we know that more is going to be expected with the county operating.
Do we still have a friendly with Prince Edwards? I know Scottsville doesn't have it, but Albemarle for picking up on those ends of the county?
Well, we've always had,
Memorandum of agreement?
yeah, but what we're
Mutual aid,
running
I'm
into
Yeah.
is the other counties have the same problem we have had. And so coming into our county, picking up calls, it's not like it used to be. For example, with Cumberland, if we needed Cumberland, the last couple of times we had to take the patient to Cumberland, to the line, and then they would take care of them. But it's been mutual aid agreements, what I'm trying to say. And it's because of lack of volunteers and lack of services.
I want to say something, John.
Yes.
I just want to, Nikki kind of touched on it, but we as a county can't thank the volunteer rescue squad of Buckingham County. It's no words can really thank those people for what they did for 50 years. I mean, it's just amazing. And, number one, I want to, it's still an opportunity for, and we don't want to shut the volunteers out. But they come to this conclusion, they just can't make it work. And the COVID crisis, attributed to that. So, I just wanted to go on record that they've done a tremendous job and that there's a great working relationship with the volunteers still. Things the landscape has changed in that venue also over the last 8 or 10 years, and even longer. So, we're just so fortunate to have had it for 50 years, and something that we don't take lightly as the board of supervisors. So,
They're good people and a lot of volunteers dedicated to that.
And nowadays, most people get paid to do what we were expecting our volunteers to do. We did a study probably 12, 13 years ago of what would happen with having paid in volunteers when the squad started contracting out for their service, and it has played out just the way the study showed it would.
That was last time we had.
Where we are.
And the training is so much more
Oh, it
intensive now.
is. It is.
Yeah, it used to be you jump in the front seat and drive.
Right.
Now you gotta have certain training before you get in the front seat.
And I want to commend our rescue squad committee board members, particularly Supervisor Allen and also Don, Vice Chairman Matthews, because we've been for a couple years now trying to hold this thing together and help the squad to stay together. And I think you saved the residents some money for a couple of years anyway, trying to keep it together.
I have a quick question, Ms. Evanston, if I may. It's not on the agenda, but just real quick, do we still use Weldon Cooper UVA Center for population estimates?
We do.
Okay.
The Weldon Cooper Center is available along with the 5-year American Community Surveys provided by the U.S. Census Bureau.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? That moves us forward to update on the communications.
We combine communications with law enforcement.
Oh, we tied in.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Update on the civic organizations.
Yes, sir, I touched on that just a little bit. That update to the civic organizations was really just cleaning up that list, finding out which organizations were still in existence and some that have no longer exist. So that was just something that was notated during the Planning Commission work session.
And I would say that some of those that no longer exist are mostly due to lack of volunteers.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other comments on that? All right, that brings us to the delineation of the tax map parcels. I'm not gonna read all of those. From the Colville Village Center. And that was triggered by the proposed conservation easement there.
Yes, yes, sir.
So, Nick, if you would quickly explain.
So there was a proposed conservation easement 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was brought to the Planning Commission, and it was the decision that once the comprehensive plan was in review and to be renewed, that the individual who owns, there are 2 parcels. In addition, they're actually part of the parcels that are listed, and it's nearly 300 acres. We also decided at that work session to remove some of the residential parcels directly along Johnson Station Road. There is a map in which we have delineated all of these parcels, and what happens is the proposal from the Planning Commission is removing that to allow for the conservation easement possibly after the comprehensive plan has been adopted. So that will come to, that's probably the first view for the Board of Supervisors, seeing that delineation. That's new on that gold growth map.
Any comments, questions?
And they didn't get that conservation easement, so.
They won't be able to actually get that if that's the decision until after this comprehensive plan is adopted and it's agreed upon that it will be a delineation of that property.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the update in chapter 5 from land use to land management strategy.
This
Is
is
this a terminology change?
This is a terminology change just due to the confusion of the questions that arose from the term land use. So during the work session, once again, our Planning Commission weighed this matter heavily and decided that the term land management strategy truly defines what we're looking for in that section.
Yeah, there was some confusion. I've got approached a couple times, and I think some of the other commissioners about land use, because that, everybody equates that to having land use versus, where you're using land. So that was just sort of a cleanup to try to avoid confusion in the future. All right, there's no other comments there. Of course, we'll have to skip to Department of Forestry, don't have those statistics. VDOT, do you have, Nikki, did you say you had those or don't?
I do not have those. That should read awaiting statistics from VDOT, just so that you would see two of the areas that.
Very good.
Yes,
If you
sir.
go to matters of discussion, we have four listed there. The first is the solar farm legislation and impact to the county. Of course, the most recent one is July 1st of this year, 2020.
I added this to matters of discussion, and if our county attorney, if Ian Wright is available, I know that in some of the comprehensive plans in neighboring counties, they do mention solar farms. Powhatan County, I did not bring that with me, but it was only about a page long. And my question to Ian would be, is this something that we should include within this comprehensive plan update, if he's available? We can continue to review this. I just put that there. If the planning commission or the board has any comments.
One thing I will say, and I have heard with the slowdown of the pipeline and that up in that air, I've had several people that I do management for have said they've been approached and they've got connections that look for a lot of solar farms now because Dominion is,
Yes, sir. I think we will see more applications.
I think you're going to see quite a few applications possibly.
And I think they will increase in size.
And Mr. Wright's here if you want to ask him that question. Naked.
Thanks for the delay. I don't hear the same thing in the same real time as y'all say, so I heard my name, but I didn't hear the question.
No problem. Thank you for coming out, Mr. Wright. Under matters of discussion, since we are discussing the updates to the comprehensive plan, I just listed solar farm legislation and any impact to the county with new rules and regulations as of July 1st. Would it behoove us to add any verbiage regarding solar farm to our comprehensive plan?
I think if the county is planning on dealing with that, I think it would be an appropriate item to have in there once the planning commission, board of supervisors establish what their philosophy they want to have in regard to solar facilities in the planning, comprehensive plan.
Are they considered, Mr. Wright, where did the term farm, solar, I mean, why are they a farm?
I'm sorry again, but just because of it's usually a pretty large area, and that's what they're harvesting off of is the sun. I think it's just somebody thought it was a nice name.
Easier said.
Mr. Wright, Ms. Evans, was there some sort of legislation in this past General Assembly session that if a solar farm were a certain size, that it would circumvent a locality's comprehensive plan as to the location thereto of such facility?
It wasn't a question of circumventing the comprehensive plan. What they made it easier to fit within the comprehensive plan, it would be deemed consistent with the comprehensive plan unless it was challenged.
Thank you.
I think there needs to be a lot of discussion on this before we come to the conference.
Discussing what?
Well, I mean, at one particular meeting, we discussed, how they were going to decommission. It was not clear to me at the end of the meeting that everything was going to get cleaned up and wasn't going to cost the county. I think Mr. Wright, he can speak for himself. He made a comment that we weren't there yet. I don't know if we're there now.
Now, what you consider, the legislation requires certain things to happen, and it's supposed to all be cleaned up, and it's supposed to post bond. A lot of jurisdictions are going to review of those bonds every so often. It's really the salvage value is what it does. Nobody wants to post the cash bonds, so they usually post the surety bond. And if inflation runs along or the value of the stuff drops, then the bond you may get it the first 5 years or the first year won't be sufficient to cover it. They also changed where the responsibility, the ultimate responsibility falls on the landowner. The landowner has to be a part of that agreement for the salvage value.
I just
The
didn't want it
cleanup.
to be a county.
You're supposed to take it all away. When the first couple that got considered, they could leave anything either surface or 18 inches below. That's been changed. They're supposed to take it all over there. They're supposed to post a bond to be able to do that. But that begs the question of how you want to approach it in your comprehensive plan. Do you want to say, a couple jurisdictions not too far from here, if you have a solar farm of a certain size, you're allowed to have it by right. And with the other size, then you have to do certain things. There are some adjustments we ought to be considering making if we should happen to get a large offer of a solar farm, because there are some certain things that the county would have a chance to enter in some type of siting agreement with that entity to maybe realize some money to meet some expenses related to the siting agreement and the impact it might have on the county.
Like a host agreement?
Similar to that, yes. But again, that's probably putting the cart before the horse in terms of what you're dealing with tonight is the comprehensive plan and what approach you want to take in your comprehensive plan. To encourage, discourage, be neutral, identify areas you want solar. I mean, those are the types of things you'd want to be thinking about in regard to your comprehensive plan.
Can we zone based on size?
Say that again?
Can we zone based on size? Megawatt or acreage?
You can make certain things the right based on size.
At a minimum, the comprehensive plan ought to state a position the county takes towards solar farms.
I would think that would be appropriate. You say, you know, we encourage in the appropriate circumstances and locations, solar farm, we're not opposed. You know, if I put solar panels on my roof
Correct.
to heat my water, how does the board and the planning commission feel about that? Do you encourage me to do that? Do you care whether I do that? Do you have any regulation about whether I should get other than a building permit possibly to do that?
We'll do it now, by building permit.
We have many applications for the addition of solar,
Yeah.
either ground mounted or mounted to the
And then
structure itself.
if I want to move from heating my water, I want to go ahead and heat my whole house through a reservoir that requires 100,000 gallons to act as the reservoir to heat and cool. You think that's a good idea, depending on the amount of acreage? I mean, that's the type of thing that I think the planning commission and the board ought to be thinking about. How do you feel about the solar energy impact? We so frequently get hung up in the commercial aspect of it that we forget that it does have a lot to do sometimes with individuals. So the answer to the question is yes. I think you should have something in your comprehensive plan about it.
Okay. Any other comments on this one before we move forward?
Does that fall under that, land use strategy?
I would say yes, it could. Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Right. Because that is a strategy for land use. If you take your farm and turn it into a solar farm. So, yeah. It would, the main thing is get the statement, the position correct, you know, satisfy both the board of supervisors and planning. And then insert it where you think it makes the most sense and reason. But at some point, probably gonna have to make some decision on what you will and will not allow, or what you'll allow by, possibly by right, like solar panels on your home, but yet, solar home, yes.
To add to the mix, I'm familiar with one situation where either when they encourage it, they say it needs to be within so many miles or so many feet of a transmission line. That way, not only do you have to do the solar farm, but if it's 20 miles from the transmission line, to exaggerate, then you've got a swath of having to worry about a new transmission line to get your power off of that, solar panels onto the distribution system. So, I mean, those are the types of factors that
Right.
you, and the parameters in terms of land management and land use you want to be thinking about.
The only thing I see too with that is the technical improvements that are going on all the time. That you may make a designation and then 6 months later, that's obsolete because they've come up with something that bypasses that or not, it negates it because it's not feasible to do. But I certainly understand your point, sir. Any other comments before we move on? All right, that brings us to the zoning districts. We sort of talked about this already in regards to the possible small business. Does anyone have any other comments in regards to that or the zoning districts in general?
Well, if I want to put a solar farm in a, is it a business or is it, what is it?
Well, that's discussion that needs to happen is, you know, how do you want to designate them? I think any sizable, so this is just my opinion, would have to be a special use permit. That way you've got some critique of both by the planning commission, board of supervisors before it's accepted. So at that time, it was Mr. Wright's suggestion to put caveats on it, restrictions that would eliminate it in some places. And so it's going to be an ongoing process to come up with that.
I mean, is it a farm, is it A1? That's what I asked the question.
That's what you get paid to do.
Well, the majority of the cases that have been introduced here have been in an A1 area, and a special use permit is required for a solar generating facility is the way that we have it worded in our A1 zoning district currently. So that it gives the planning commission and the board of supervisors a chance to review what the request truly is and then the size of the project.
Has been any talk with wind turbines? You seen, heard anything about that?
It's possibilities.
I'm just asking.
Any more comments before we move on? All right, we got business growth. We've also sort of discussed that too.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments on basically what I think the consensus was we don't want to discourage business growth. We want to encourage it as much as possible.
Absolutely.
And that sort of ties back to possibly creating another zoning district. But any other comments on that? All right, for the business updates.
For business updates, I actually just wanted to offer some information in regard to some of the most recent cases that have passed through the planning commission and with recommendation of approval, and the same with our board of supervisors. This past weekend, we had, I don't know if you remember the case, it was for Jamise Vowles, and she was opening a home health staffing agency. I bring this up because last Saturday, which was July 11th, she had a ribbon cutting. The Chamber of Commerce was present. She may have actually included an invitation to the Planning Commission and the board. I'm not sure, so I apologize if I'm incorrect. Not only did she have a ribbon cutting on Saturday, July 11th, she opened her doors with employees and patients on Monday, July 13th. The Board of Supervisors granted her special use permit on June 8th. 1 month after you had approved her ability to move forward with the business, she opened her business. Not only did she open her business, she worked hand in hand with Longwood Small Business Development Center. She has a full business plan with 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. She is creating jobs here. She is using a Paychex payroll company and is adhering to all local, state, and federal guidelines. I think that this is a wonderful endeavor. This is something that did happen in an A1, and you know, this could be construed as one of those spot zoning type of decisions, but at the same time, that there was a case-by-case review by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors that understood that we are rural in nature and that we have individuals who have the desire and the drive and the dream to make a business happen and employ people within this community, and she has done just that. Mr. Kane, he requested an SUP to operate a garage on Route 60. He has submitted his building permit. And Lexi works those permits, and she's given me the thumbs up, so that's in process. Once that building is there, he will also be working on the cars and performing that maintenance and in hiring and probably 1 to 2 individuals. Those are more jobs, and we're keeping that money here in this county. Sometimes when the applications come through, unfortunately, some of the individuals don't actually obtain a business license or move forward with their business, but what we're seeing is that our individuals are prepared while they're going through this process. I know that on the flip side of what we've talked about tonight, I try to have conversations with every applicant to let them know the process sounds a bit scarier than it truly is. Just remember, it's an introduction and a public hearing for the Planning Commission, an introduction and a Planning Commission for the Board of Supervisors. I encourage them to come to these meetings, of course, because they are the applicant. Those 4-month processes have actually worked because behind the scenes, these individuals were developing their plan to be even stronger once the approval came through. So what I'm saying is that through the last 20 plus years, the decisions to grant business permits has been reviewed very cautiously, and those individuals have moved forward with those businesses. So while we're bringing up new zoning districts, it's not to negate anything that's happened. It's actually truly to enhance the development of economic business growth that's happening here in our county. I also want you to know that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, there are individuals that call to find out what the zoning is and what type of businesses they can offer. We have those conversations of what needs to take place. So I never convey that 4-month process is a hindrance, because there's so many things that they can do behind the scenes to continue to grow and develop. So I just wanted you to know from some of the most recent applications what has happened, and not only what has happened for that particular business owner, but what is happening for the individuals who are gaining employment through those. So sometimes it's nice to find out exactly the good news within the county. I mean, we're in the midst of Corona, but we've got a business owner that is growing because, of course, she chose a healthcare field, which is one of the...
Y'all got to remember the ordinance gives him his girlfriend. He got stuff to do.
I didn't say anything.
I can't pay that man to fix a jail, you're broke.
Mr. Chairman, I'm advised in just a few minutes you'll be back in business.
He's in charge, not me. I didn't say anything. I didn't. Not this one.
Continue. We were about to go to item F, which is consider further work sessions where further comp plan can be posted for 30 days for the public, for the youth, environment, and public comment to the planning commission. Well, we added an item with this possible new zoning, so it's obvious that the planning commission needs another work session.
Right.
I've talked to Supervisor Allen here, and he suggests that we tackle it, get something, it be forwarded to the board of supervisors, then we have a joint work session to hammer out the details. And I think that's an excellent plan.
Right, I think.
Anybody have any problem with that, or think that's a good
I don't
idea?
think we're ready for community review.
What kind of time frame are you talking about?
Nikki, what do we have available? I guess next August?
Yes, so I believe it's, forgive me, I don't have the dates in front of me.
August work session.
The August work session is is it the 17th? August 24th, I believe, is the next.
It is the 17th.
Yeah, August 17th is our next work session.
Joint work session?
It can be.
I'm just asking, are you gonna have it ready by then?
We will have some verbiage on solar farm zoning districts. Those are two things.
When are we gonna do that?
That will be.
Why don't we move our joint session to the 21st of September? And then that'll give us August to work on that.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Is that suitable to the planning commission? We'll have a work session in August, and then hopefully have everything ready to go to the joint session in September.
We'll have something, but I don't think we will have everything.
Well, if we just get the main items and an outline, what we're thinking, and then we hopefully at that joint work session, we can finalize it, or get it close enough it can be finalized.
Move it up, it won't get that done.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Before the planning commission recess, I'd like to thank the board of supervisors for meeting with us. I think it was very productive to have y'all here and bounce things off. I really appreciate you doing it. I think it gave us some direction, but also we cleared up a lot of issues too. So really appreciate that. With that, I'm going to recess the planning commission to reconvene Monday, July 27th at our regular meeting, which is next month. So now I will turn that over to the board of supervisors meeting. So the planning commission can leave. Right.
Just call your, read this recommendation
Mr. Supervisor.
I'm going to report just very briefly from the Utilities Committee. I would offer a motion that we approve a change order for the Dillon water tank, in that staff has discovered that the original contract called for pressure washing the exterior of the tank, spot sandblasting, and priming of the final coat. And when they started to pressure wash, the old paint started coming off, which means that they cannot paint over the existing coating. In order to correct the problem, the committee is asking for the need to sandblast the entire exterior, prime and repaint, and that's a change order of approximately $100,000. And Mike Markley, our utilities director, I spoke to the engineer, and he thinks that for that amount of additional work required to complete the project, the price is pretty reasonable. And the funds for the change order aren't coming out of the general fund, the Water Enterprise Fund. So I would offer a motion that we approve that change order as a recommendation from the Utilities Committee.
You make a motion to that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Chambers. Any discussion?
I'd just like to add that our public utilities manager, Mr. Markley, talked us down from $125,000 to $100,000. So I want to commend him for doing that.
Any other discussion on it? Call for the vote.
Chairman Bryant,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Matthews,
Yes.
Supervisor Miles,
Yes.
Supervisor Chambers,
Yes.
Supervisor Allen.
Yes.
Motion carried. 5-7. Any other business? Well, I'll just do
Goodbye.
Shot who?
Goodbye.
Board of Supervisor meeting is adjourned. Stop it right now.